welcome back to another episode of We Don't Know What to Watch, the podcast where two guys use the power of the internet to watch random movies we hopefully haven't seen before, even though sometimes we do see them. With me, as always, is the Jason Voorhees to my Freddy Krueger. It's prime time, bitch. It's Kyle Mulford, and I'm Noah Saturn.
Got your Nintendo glove ready.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget the power glove!
I'm doing all right. Watched a lot of movies. It's October. I don't know if this will be posted in October, but as of right now, it's October, so we're going to be talking about a lot of horrors.
Yep, I'll probably still be talking. We'll be talking about a lot of horror movies anyway, so it's
That's true.
not a lot different. Not a lot is different for us.
It's what we like.
All right, so this is one of our hopefully mini episodes. What you're watching, where we just go through the movies we have been watching. How many movies have you watched this time, Kyle?
Oh gosh, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 movies.
Okay, I got you beat. I got 17. So
Oh, very nice. Well, I can start it off if you want.
sure, let's go through.
Well, last time I told you I was going to finish watching Body Melt, so I actually finished watching it after our podcast. It's a 1993. I think it was an Australian. Yeah, it was an Australian one. It's streaming on Amazon Prime. It's a really bad movie, but it's got some really fun, like gory effects and stuff. Just about like this company is doing experiments and sending out packets of stuff, and it like makes you hallucinate at first, and then like it just starts like your body starts deteriorating and all this stuff, and like weird things happen. And it like I said, it's not a good movie, but it was kind of fun. I watched it with a friend online, and it was kind of fun to watch together with someone.
Nice.
Then we had a movie night, and my oldest daughter, it was her turn to pick out, and she picked Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy because it's
That's a good one.
October.
I haven't seen that one.
We have all 4 Abbott and Costello movies. So several years ago, we started the tradition of watching Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein every single year. So, and then we bought the 4-pack DVD, and we started, we still watch Frankenstein every year. And then we pick 1 or 2 of the others to watch. So, and she really likes the Abbott Costello Meet the Mummy. So it's a fun one. All 4 of them are actually really fun. So
Yeah, I really like Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man because it has a nice I like the boxing sequence.
the boxing sequence in that is fantastic. Yeah. So I'm sure I'll talk about this one again sometime because we watch them every October. Then on HBO Max, I watched Crazy Rutger Hauer in The Hitcher.
Oh yeah.
That is such a good movie. It's so like he's so crazy. He's like this hitchhiker who it's like he wants to be stopped and like from killing people, but then he like one guy gets away from him, and then he starts and so then Rutger Hauer just starts following him and framing him for all the murders he commits. So, and it's so great because it starts out with him getting picked up by the main guy, and I can't remember who it is. He was an actor from he was in The Outsiders. I think he played Ponyboy. Who was that? I can't remember. I can't remember the actor's name now. But anyway, he picks up Rutger Hauer, and they pass a car, and he's like, "Well, should we stop and help him?" No. Well, they don't need any help anymore. Well, how do you know? Because I cut off his legs and his arms and his head. That's basically how the movie starts.
That's great use of the dramatic pause.
So yeah, that one's really fun. So you check that out on HBO Max. And then on Canopy, I watched. I've been watching a lot of Italian horror. I went and watched the Beyond.
Oh yeah.
So this one is this woman inherits an old hotel, and it's haunted.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a doorway to hell or something, one of the circles of hell or something like that. It was like one of 9 doorways to hell is underneath her hotel. So, and that gets opened up and craziness happens, and it's another fun. I'm really digging the Italian horrors.
Well, if you said it's Italian, that means the only person who can help stop it is Luigi with his vacuum.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, or Toad.
I was just playing Luigi's Mansion 3, so.
Oh, nice. And then after that, I went to Amazon Prime and I went not just musical, but full on opera with Repo, the genetic opera.
Not quite what I was expecting, but I'm not surprised.
Can you name me another movie where you're going to find Paul Sorvino, Anthony Head, Paris Hilton, and Sarah Brightman?
I can't. One of those is not like the others.
I think all four of those are not like the others.
Yeah, fair enough.
Paul Sorvino is not a very good singer in this. Anthony Head, I think, has an excellent voice. He was also great when they did the 1 hour musical episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think that episode was called Once More with Feeling or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember seeing him in that and going, oh, he's got a good voice. And then Repo the Genetic Opera came out. It was like, oh, Anthony Head's in it. I think I'm gonna have to check this out. And it is like full on opera because it's 90% singing. So it's a fun opera slasher.
And then Sarah Brightman, of course, has lots of Broadway experience. So
yes. Because was she married to?
she was married to Andrew Lloyd Webber for a while, and she was the original Christine for Phantom
In
of the Opera.
Phantom, yeah. So no, she's got a wonderful voice. So she only gets one little or one song basically in this movie though, which was kind of ironic. But that happens a lot with musicians. Like they'll get into like some movie that's got a lot of music and they get no singing and everyone else gets singing. This one was about a company that like makes synthetic organs for transplants, and if you can't pay your bill, then they send the repo man out to harvest that organ out of you. So,
And it's Emilio Estevez.
Unfortunately, no. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
And then also on Amazon Prime, I watched Poltergeist 2, The Other Side. What's funny is Poltergeist 1 is a better movie, but I almost remember more scenes out of this one from when I was a kid.
Huh.
And I don't know, have you ever seen this one?
I've only seen the first one.
Oh, okay. Because there's a scene in this one where the brother, he's got braces and he's in the bathroom and his braces start wrapping all around him, and then like he gets caught on the ceiling. It's just like metal wires everywhere. It almost felt like the computer scene from Superman 3.
I was gonna say it sounded like he saw the lament configuration from Hellraiser.
I don't know that one. I've only seen the first Hellraiser, and it's been a long time. So
Pinhead didn't show up.
I don't know. Does he in the first one?
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember not being a huge fan of the first one, but I might have to revisit it because it was a long time ago. But yeah, anyway, Poltergeist 2 is just a continuation of the first one. It's basically, oh, you escaped it, but it's actually following Carol Ann. And so you've got to confront this thing. And, and they bring back Zelda Rubinstein.
Nice.
And then they bring in the Indian, what's his name? Is it the one who's in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Oh, yeah.
Samson, right?
Yeah.
Is it Will Sampson?
I forget what his name is.
But yeah, he's in there too, hanging out with the family, doing weird Indian rituals and stuff. And
of course,
it's another fun movie. I'd recommend watching it after. And yes, it's not as good as Poltergeist, but there's some cool scenes in it. And then I bought a Scream Factory Blu-ray of the 1988 Blob, because this is a movie I watch every October. I started about 5 or 6 years ago when I discovered this movie for the first time, and it became instantly one of my favorite horror movies.
Scream Factory does put out great stuff.
There are a lot of interviews on this, and I think a couple, maybe 2 or 3 commentaries.
Nice.
So, yeah, and I just love the Blob. I watched this was the first year I actually watched it with my daughter, Elsa, the 8-year-old. So she enjoyed it too. So it's got some great effects. Some of it is very green screeny, and you can tell, but there are some scenes that are great, like when the dishwasher in the kitchen goes down the drain. His body gets folded in half and sucked down the drain, and then another scene where one guy gets his body folded in half backwards by the Blob.
Ouch.
And then some of the melty effects
Yeah, I remember the dissolving melty effects.
were really cool. So, and the writing itself is really great too, because Frank Darabont wrote the script for this, I believe, and it was directed by what's his name? Is it Chuck Russell, who directed Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream
Oh,
Warriors, Dream Warriors. So really good movie. That's going to be one of the highest recommends this week. And then another purchase I had on Prime Day on Amazon for $70. They had the 30 movie Universal Monsters Blu-ray box set.
that's got to be a huge box.
Yeah, it's not ginormous because it's actually basically what they did is they took all the legacy collections and put them into one box set.
Well, I mean, the legacy collections are probably the best versions of them anyway. So,
Yeah. So and this is the Blu-ray ones too, so they're real cleaned up and they look really nice. So another one I watched with my daughter, we watched Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I had never seen that one before. And we really liked it. And she she said at one point, like, because they had all the underwater effects too, and it's an old black and white movie, and they're doing all this stuff underwater, and we were going, I wonder how they were doing that, like what kind of gear they had underneath the suit for him to be under there, or was he holding his breath for certain scenes,
mhm.
or what? And and my daughter said, I asked her if she liked it. She goes, "Yeah, it's not scary, but I just like the idea of it being underwater and everything." I was like, "Oh boy, I could start doing a bunch of underwater horror with you." Oh, but it was a really cool movie.
Yeah, and remember that one was originally made to be in 3D. You can still see it with some of the stuff that goes at the camera. The 3D effect actually works pretty cool. I was able to catch a digital 3D screening of it once, and
Oh, that's
it's
awesome.
pretty well.
Nice. Then on HBO Max, I finally got around to watching one of the Universal Monster updates, The Invisible Man from 2020.
That one's so much fun.
So good. Like I just love the updated version of it. Like just how it's an abusive boyfriend that she's trying to get away from, and then nobody believes her. I mean,
Mhm.
such a great script for it.
Yeah, Elizabeth Moss is definitely. I mean, she's a great actress, so she really carries that film especially well.
Yeah. And yeah, and I love that they don't really explain, they don't go into the whole explanation of how he created this or what he even does for a living. He's just like this rich dude who creates things, and he created an invisible suit.
Yep.
So I like that they didn't go into that, and they took it in the direction of the story that you want, is her trying to get away and getting people to believe her and getting out of this toxic relationship. So
Yeah, so two of my favorite sequences I remember is like where she's like lurking around in the attic and then like she grabs a bucket of paint.
yeah,
And then another one of my favorite sequences was when she's escaping from like the mental institution and then like it's in the rain and then like the suit is like partially functioning, partially non-functioning.
yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, the effects were really great in this too.
Yeah. And for a movie that probably if it didn't have that high of a budget, they maximized their budget and they maximized their effects. So
Oh yeah, they did. So okay, these next four movies I'm going to put just in a chunk because it was my youngest daughter's turn to pick out movie night, and something happened where we couldn't watch them on Friday night. So we decided she wanted to watch one of a series, and it wasn't her fault that we couldn't watch it Friday night. So we said, okay, she really wanted to watch all of the series. So we're like, okay, we'll do that on Sunday. So on Sunday, on a Sunday, me and my wife sat down with my daughter and watched all four Alvin and the Chipmunks movies.
not a bad way to spend a Sunday, but everyone knows the best one is the road chip.
So we got Alvin and the Chipmunks, Alvin and the Chipmunks, the Squeakquel, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Chipwrecked, and Alvin and the Chipmunks, the Road Chip. And I know I'm sure these got terrible reviews, but it was fine. There some of those harmless ones. Are there a couple of poop jokes here? Yeah, there's like two or three in the whole series, and the rest is just cute little chipmunk humor. There are some jokes in there that I'm like, okay, that's like too adult, and like you didn't need to put that in there. But for the most part, the only thing you have to worry about is the voices getting on your nerves after a while.
Yeah, overall, it's fine.
There again, I've said this on a lot of movies. Yeah, am I ever going to sit down and watch these on my own? Hell no. But if you have kids, these are fine. They really are.
My
And
favorite character was always like David Cross, who's just like,
yeah, he was
yeah,
in 3 of
he
them. And I read it. I read so he did the first 3, and I read somewhere that he got ridiculed in the first one by like Patton Oswalt and Brian Posehn and all of these other comedians. Like they're like they just ripped him for like actually taking
is.
this role. And then by the third one, he said, well, he just from what I read, he said it was a fine experience doing the first one. And then the third movie, I read like all the trivia on it, and it was like he was quoted as saying like it was the worst experience he ever had.
Sometimes you do it for a paycheck.
Yeah. So then moving back into the horror, on HBO Max, you can find Altered States, directed by Ken Russell, I believe, with William Hurt. I had never seen this one before too, so this was one that's been on my list to watch. This is a weird. He's William Hurt plays this professor who's kind of cold and distant from human interaction, and he just wants to find like he thinks emotions are just like love and all this stuff are just fillers, and he's trying to find like the absolute truth or whatever, the great truth. And so he thinks that all human consciousness is connected in some way to the original consciousness, in history. Like all memories are like a shared experience or
Like
something
a
like that.
collective memory sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So then he goes into like then he finds this drug, this mushroom drug in South America or Mexico or something like that. And he takes that and goes into an isolation chamber, and he taps into you know, into his primal consciousness. And he, at one point, he comes out of the thing as like this primitive ape slash man type
Like,
thing.
yeah, caveman sort of
Yeah,
thing.
kind of caveman, like full on, full hairy, like could only make guttural noises, kind of person. And then and then all this trippy stuff going on the screen and different scenes, and just kind of weird. Overall, I enjoyed it. I think it was trying a little too much to be kind of cerebral. And
Hmm.
all the trippy stuff was just like, you're just throwing a bunch of randoms. Maybe there was something there that I didn't understand what the director was trying to do. Maybe I'm not smart enough for it, but it just seemed like a bunch of random images up on the screen, all surreal and everything. But it was still an interesting movie and kind of a cool movie. So, and William Hurt was pretty good in it. So,
Hmm.
and then finally on Amazon Prime, I watched finish off with another Italian horror called Screamers. And this is actually Screamers is what is on Prime. It has a new beginning, and it came out in 1981 here. It was re-released in 81 as Screamers, but in 79 it was released in Italy as Island of the Frogmen.
Nice. Other
And
frog.
they deleted a couple of scenes here and there, and then added a new prologue to it for the re-release as Screamers, I guess.
But are there frogmen?
There are frogmen aplenty, and
Good.
it's this weird movie where experiments going on this island, and there are these frogmen, and then there's a guy who found the lost city of Atlantis underneath the island. But it's so deep that humans can't go that far down, so he's using the frogmen to go down and get the treasure from Atlantis.
Makes sense.
And but then you also get frogmen killing people, so you get the horror slasher stuff. and my daughter was also watching this one with me, and after watching Creature from the Black Lagoon, she's like, "This could look kind of like the creature." And I was
Yeah.
like, this could really play as like a prequel to Creature from the Black Lagoon.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. So that was another a cool little Italian horror film. So, and that's streaming on Amazon Prime. And
Nice.
and that's what I watched.
Okay. I'll start going through what I watched. I think I said this on our last What You Watching, but Criterion Channel has a big like 1970s horror movie collection, so I'm just kind of going through as many of those as I can. And so some of them are from there, other ones are from other places, but I will note it as. So our first one was Dracula A.D. 1972. This was a Hammer horror film where it's like Dracula comes to like 1970s London and he's
Nice.
resurrected by a bunch of cool hippie kids. And then he decides, hey, I'm going to Dracula, so that's what I'm going to do.
Instead of
So that's
killing, he
like,
starts to love. He says,
yep.
I'm all about loving, not biting your neck.
Anyway, I love you by biting your neck.
Oh, okay.
And with that one, it's Peter Cushing is in it too as a descendant of the original Dr. Van Helsing.
Oh,
Blah,
cool.
blah, blah. Dracula does what he's going to do, but, hypnotizes people, eats people, same old, same old.
I don't say blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. It was fun. Next, I watched Images from the same collection from Robert Altman. It's about a young woman who thinks her husband may or may not be cheating on her. Then she starts getting like weird visions and like stuff gets kooky really fast. I hadn't really seen a horror movie from Robert Altman before. I like some of his other stuff. I like Nashville. I like The Player.
Yeah, horror is not something that comes to mind when you think Altman.
Yeah.
Was this a big ensemble horror?
I wish it was. No, this was a pretty small movie. Next, I watched The Body Snatcher. I recorded that off the DVR. That one is based off an old Robert Louis Stevenson. It's got Boris Karloff in the 1940s. Bela Lugosi shows up too briefly because, they're like peanut butter and jelly. They just go really well together.
Yeah, for sure.
And with this one, basically, there's medical students and medical professors are like, all right, so this was real, that there was a shortage of bodies needed for autopsies. So then we got our good friend, this kind of spooky looking coachman guy played by Boris Karloff, who provides the bodies, but you don't know where he gets them from.
Did he get the body of Abby Normal?
Exactly. Turns out, he kills people and then he robs their graves and stuff. But there were actual grave robbers in that time period, so there is a grain of truth to it. Who would just rob graves of people and then they would just, give the bodies to science and get paid for it.
Crazy.
Next, I watched They Won't Believe Me, which is another DVR film. This is a noir from the 1940s. It's basically like a guy confessing in front of court of, how he definitely didn't kill his wife and he definitely didn't kill his mistress. Definitely.
Definitely.
Yes. Next, I watched another noir. This was Gilda, the classic Rita Hayworth film. And
Awesome.
this one's a lot of fun, very much about a relationship between Gilda and these two men vying for affection. But then if you really look at the film, you could definitely read into it enough, a queer reading, whereas like the two men are also in a relationship and like one of them and like and then Gilda is their ex, so she's like making fun of him the whole time. And then I watched back to my 1970s horror films, and I watched Don't Look Now, starring Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland, based off of a Daphne du Maurier short story, the same lady who wrote Rebecca, the same lady who wrote The Birds. And this one is about, two parents that are on an extended vacation in Venice after they lost a child to a tragic drowning accident. Okay, what happens when they start seeing this kid around Venice and start following her around because it's her in a red raincoat?
Yeah, I've seen this one before.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. Isn't that one also like the sex scene was supposedly they were actually having sex in there?
Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure that happened a lot in the 70s, but
I'm sure, yeah, but still, you can never really tell. They might say they are, and they're probably not.
yeah.
Then I watched back to another '70s movie. I watched Rollerball, starring James Caan. Which is,
Nice.
yeah, have you seen Rollerball?
I have seen Rollerball.
Yeah. Future recorded the 1970s. There's this sport which is basically like a fancy version of like roller derby, except there's a ball involved. Then the guy starts questioning, why is everything ruled by corporations? And now, anyway, maybe these guys aren't so great.
Yeah, and corporations come up with Rollerball.
And then I went back to my 70s horror, and one came up. This was Sisters by Brian De Palma.
I have not seen this one.
Really? I thought you were on a bit of a De Palma kick a while back. So
I was for a little bit. I was watched a few, and I will watch some more. But yeah, I have not seen Sisters.
this one is starring Margot Kidder, who's like a who's a model, who's like a French Canadian model who's harboring a dangerous secret. And, there's some good old murder, there's some stuff here, stuff there. And she may or may not have had like a conjoined twin at some point. He's like, all right, well, if she's the normal one, what happened to the twin? Lots of
Oh,
suspense there.
that sounds like a good one. I'm gonna have to check that one out.
Then I watched Theater of Blood, which is fun in a different kind of way. So it's about this, Shakespearean actor played by Vincent Price, who's, having fun because that's what Vincent Price does when he's in a horror movie.
I can imagine how much fun he's having if he's playing a Shakespearean actor.
Exactly. So then, like, he he didn't win like this critics award or something. So then slowly he's all like plotting them. So he's slowly killing them off one by one, based off of like the works of William Shakespeare.
Oh, okay. I want to watch that.
Yeah, so this one's fun because it's him sort of playing playing a guy who does overacted in Shakespeare and then also murdering them in sort of over the top ways.
Awesome.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Next, I watched Ganja and Hess. This one was actually starring Dwayne Jones, who was Ben, the main character in Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, okay.
And something happens to him where he ends up becoming a vampire, and it's really less about a traditional vampire movie and more about a relationship between him and a woman. It's closer to like this doomed romance than actually more of a vampire pick. So it's kind of sad, and I liked it.
Well, I hope it's better than Only Lovers Left Live.
I think so, because it actually has a plot.
That's good. Then maybe I'll check that one out.
Next, I watched The Crazies, and
Which
it's by George A. Romero, which hits different in 2020 because it's about a virus that comes to a small town. You think it was like engineered by the military or something, and oh no, it turns people crazy where they start running around trying to kill each other. And so it's a military quarantine zone, and there's like a group of survivors which are trying to escape.
I still haven't seen this, and I haven't seen the remake either, and I've heard the remake's actually pretty good. So I want to watch both of those actually.
The only thing I know about the remake is that it was made in Iowa, so
Yeah, and we know one of the people that plays the news report.
Neat.
Do you know who that was?
I think it was Bruce, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's our coworker Bruce, so former coworker. He retired.
Yes.
Next, I watched Black Christmas by Bob Clark, also
That's
known
a
as
good one.
yeah. As far as it's a very early slasher film, came out right around the same time as Texas Chainsaw Massacre. As far as slasher movies goes, this one is still pretty brutal, even by today's standards. It's pretty
Yeah.
dark.
And it's so crazy because he's like in the house most of the time.
Yeah, and
It,
you can never really see the killer the whole time. You see, there's plenty of POV shots, and you hear him like make weird, creepy noises on the phone.
yeah. Such a creepy movie.
And also, John Saxon is in it playing a cop. I like to imagine it's the same character from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Does he play anything other than a cop ever?
Character actor, shows up here and there. It's always a good time when he shows up.
Oh wait, he plays the leader of the bad guys in Battle Beyond the Stars.
Okay, so of course.
I love John Saxon.
Then
R.I.P.
Then I went back and watched the classic 1931 Dracula with Bela Lugosi. Yeah, I would try and watch this one at least once a year. It's a classic for a reason. It's still a lot of fun. Bela Lugosi's performance is definitely iconic. When you think Dracula, you think of him,
Yep.
even to this day. And have you ever actually seen the Spanish version of this film?
No, but they're like everywhere you read online, they're like it's might possibly be the superior film.
So if you can, I definitely that one might be part of your box set.
It actually is, so I will check it out sometime. So yeah,
So what's fun about that one is that they used a lot of the same. They actually used the same sets. Where like so the English Dracula was made. They made that during the day, and then they'd switch it over and use everything for the Spanish Dracula, which was made at night. So because of that, Spanish Dracula actually got to see some of the footage that they were using when they were making regular Dracula or English Dracula, and they were able to improve upon it, make some things more dynamic, make some interesting changes here and there.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's interesting how they did that. Like, I wonder how often that happened back then.
I haven't heard of any other things like that.
Because this is the one big one that you've heard of, that you hear about of them using the same set and filming at the same time.
Is there a Spanish Frankenstein?
That'd be awesome.
Yes. Then there's Where the Sidewalk Ends,
By
which is
Shel
not.
Silverstein.
I wish it was a Shel Silverstein movie. It is not. It is another noir I watched. Had on the DVR. I like those. There's a good program on Saturday nights on Turner Classic Movies where they call it Noir Alley, where they always show some good ones. And with this one, it's about a cop who accidentally kills like a suspect for a mob case, and he tries to blame it on someone else.
Oh, nice.
So it's Dana Andrews plays the cop, and then Gene Tierney plays the sort of his kind of girlfriend who's trying to keep right and do right by, so they can get away from it all. So it's almost actually technically a Laura reunion with because they were both in the film Laura, and even directed by Otto Preminger.
Oh, cool.
So if you like Laura, I'd recommend this one. Then I watched Deathdream, another Bob Clark horror movie. And this one is also notable because it has the first appearance of a special effects guy whom we all know and love, Tom Savini,
As the effects guy or as an actor?
as the effects guy. He did the effects for this one. It's one of his first credits.
I don't know if I've even heard of this one.
I think it's gone by a couple other titles, maybe, but this one basically it's about a soldier, sort of a monkey's paw sort of thing. Like they hear a story that your son died in Vietnam, and then it's like okay, I really wish he came back. So he does come back in the middle of the night, but he's not quite right, and you slowly figure out that he's kind of become like this weird ghoul vampire sort of thing where he can only subsist on blood of other people.
Yeah, how was this compared to Black Christmas then?
This is a very different film. This one's a much sadder film because it's talking about, even this demonic thing is like maybe it's more metaphorical for things like, traumatizing of war, especially the Vietnam War, because with that ending and soldiers coming back and either having, PTSD or having to do things like alcohol or drugs just to try and cope with the terrible things they saw. So that one is pretty good. It has a bit of a point too. And last, this one was another DVR film. I just watched this one like a couple hours ago. This was Peggy Sue Got Married, starring Kathleen Turner and Nicolas Cage, directed
Nice.
by Francis Ford Coppola. And this one is a really sweet time travel film about a woman is going to her 25th anniversary, not 25th anniversary, 25th high school reunion. People see who's there, who's not, and then she's selected as the sort of the homecoming queen is back, and then her life is kind of okay. She's got 2 kids, but she got divorced from her high school sweetheart, that sort of thing. So then she ends up like out of falling over, fainting during the middle of the reunion, then kind of wakes up, and then she's back in 1960 in like your senior year of high school.
Awesome. I've only seen bits and pieces of this one.
Yeah, and then this came out a year after Back to the Future, but this one is very different, very quieter, much more. I think the biggest difference is because Peggy Sue, she remembers everything from when she was in high school. So then she's trying to like, can I make changes in my life, or is like, can I do anything to change my life, or is this all just kind of painful to be back? Because she remembers stuff like her parents are young, her grandparents are still alive, and then also Jim Carrey's in this movie
Oh,
as like a secondary character, really kind of before he got super big. But it's like, oh hey, it's like Jim Carrey, what are you doing here? He plays a goofy guy. Imagine that.
imagine that. Can't imagine.
Hmm.
What year was this made?
This is 1986.
Okay. So this is very early in his career because in Living Colors when he skyrocketed and that was early 90s, I think.
Hmm.
He did have Once Bitten, I think was in the late 80s. Was a vampire movie I watched a lot.
So this was probably maybe during when he was doing stand up or.
Yeah, I wonder.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with all of yeah, he's definitely more of like when you think Jim Carrey, you think more of his kind of 90s superstardom.
I always like seeing those tiny little cameos in old movies of like big stars that like,
Hmm.
oh, that's crazy. It's kind of like when I realized that Dana Carvey is in one of the Halloween movies, as I think it's like Halloween 2 maybe, as
Nice.
like a reporter or something. I don't even know if he has a line. I think it was in the Halloween series. It's in one of
Yeah,
those.
and like then Paul Rudd shows up in one of the Halloween movies too.
Yeah. He's like in the sixth one or something like
Yeah.
that.
And then just for some random reason, then oh, just like it seemed like a lot of people starting horror movies. Like you always forget that Kevin Bacon shit is in the first is in the first Friday the 13th film.
Yeah, Jennifer Aniston is in the first Leprechaun. Leonardo DiCaprio is in Critters 4. Uh, there's George Clooney is in Return to Horror High and Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
And in Grizzly 2, the concert.
Oh yes, I have not seen Grizzly 2. I think that's one of those hard to find ones. Grizzly 1 is actually streaming somewhere, but
Yeah, Grizzly 1 is actually pretty good.
but yeah,
Even if it is just Jaws on land.
there are so many people that got their start in horror because I mean it's low budget and just especially 80s horror. You see a lot of big name stars in
70s and 80s, even goes back even further. So
yeah.
because lower budget, you can get a place to start there.
Yep. So even Tom Hanks.
True. You haven't seen the thing is though, you haven't seen Grizzly 2 because nobody has because I'm not sure if it's just came out this year because it was made in like the early 80s, but then basically one of the producers just kind of took all the footage and went on and ran.
Yeah, there's some weird story to it. I know
Yeah,
that.
there's like a weird story why, and then they finally got the footage back so they can finally put it together like just this year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it sounds like I heard a podcast I like to listen to. They were talking about like the whole backstory behind that movie, and it just sounds insane. So I kind of want to track it down.
Yeah, hopefully it could be easy to find because I definitely would enjoy seeing that.
Maybe a Shout Factory will one day put out a Blu-ray.
Maybe a double set with both movies on there.
Yes, for sure.
So that's all the movies I have.
All right, some good stuff in there.
What do you think you're gonna watch next?
Probably another horror movie. I think next one on my list was The Prowler. So another 80s slasher. Imagine that.
Oh, so one question before we go: would you consider yourself more of like a Freddy guy or a Jason guy?
Um, Here's my thought on that. Nightmare on Elm Street is the better of all of the movies. The first Nightmare on Elm Street, and actually Wes Craven's New Nightmare is great too.
Oh yeah.
As far as entertainment overall, though, I will watch any one of the Friday the 13th at any time because they're either good slasher fun or so bad they're fun slasher fun. I actually just love watching any of the Friday the 13th series. Some of the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff is like I'll watch all of them, but some of them are just they got a little too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really one or the other. Like it just depends on what I'm in the mood for. Because they're so I know they're both slashers, but they're so different.
Yeah, I think Freddy is ultimately, I guess, more interesting to me just because you can do weirder stuff with dream logic
Yeah.
and sort of, power of dreams and whatnot.
But
But
I
I've
think
seen
they could have stayed scarier. Like through the whole series, that could have been a terrifying series.
you're saying that like Freddy's Dead isn't super scary.
That one I don't remember which one that one is. I know it's called Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, which ended up not being the final nightmare, but that's kind of like Jason for the final chapter. So many final movies. It's like Final Destination and Final Destination 2 and Final
And six.
Destination
It's
3.
like not as bad as Final Fantasy.
I mean, how many Final Fantasies and Final Destinations can you have? It's like
A lot.
finally the final.
A lot.
No, this is really the final one.
Yeah. I also need to watch Freddy versus Jason. I heard it's good fun.
Yeah. If you want like good fun, like cheesy fun, Jason X.
True. Jason in space.
That's a
I need to watch. I've seen a few of each series. Like I've seen Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, and then I think I've seen Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, because that one has the scene with the chocolate bar.
yes. I think part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, is the only one that's almost unwatchable.
Mm-hmm.
So
Uh, and then I've seen, let's see, Nightmare on Elm Street. Was able to catch that one in theaters one time. There was like a double feature of that one and the remake, so then I just watched that one and left. So I've seen that one, and I've seen Freddy's Dead, and then I've seen New Nightmare. So it's like I'm kind of all over with that series.
Oh, I've seen all of them. I've seen all of the Halloweens, all of the Friday the 13th, all of the Nightmare on Elm Streets. So I've seen all of them at least once or twice.
Nice.
Anywho, that's what we've been watching lately, and let us know what you've been watching and
Yeah,
comment
and
below and yada yada yada.
follow us on social media. I'm at Noah_Saturn on Twitter.
And I am at AwesomeKM, and we're on Instagram at We Don't Know What to Watch, which you kind of get a preview of what we're going to talk about here because I just kind of post what I'm watching at the moment. So until next time, keep watching.
Yeah, until next time, forget it, Vic, if that's the way you feel about it.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.